Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Three Cups and a Dash of Spirituality. Today, we're going to talk about pets and how they may interact both spiritually and otherwise. Tune in and let's play the music. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Three Cups and a Dash of Spirituality. So, with me today, I have the fabulous Carissa.
Hey, hey.
And the wonderful Michelle.
I'll take wonderful. Hey, Stacy. Hi, Carissa.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing well. Hard to believe it's 2024 already and that we've been doing this little thing for like 6 months or so.
Has it really been 6 months?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're talking today about pets and spirituality. Who wants to kick us off?
Well, we have 2 videos. What I really like about these videos is I have one where many times my dog has picked up that something's in the house before me, because we all know how pets are. We're all very sensitive to that stuff. And I have a video where he's almost looked like she's sniffing, like you'll see the video of what is here. And then when my dog calmed down, my camera zoomed in and out like someone was standing right in front of it.
Should we just cue the video?
Yeah, do it.
All right, hold on one second. Magical. And here we go. Play.
So something's there. Usually she's just chilling. It's moving.
Who is it, Lily?
And then there goes my screen in and out.
And then she had an itch.
And then she had an itch.
How
But
cool.
And this is also, you don't need to go to haunted houses because stuff's going to be coming in and out of your house. Don't mean to freak you out, guys, but right?
You're not wrong. I mean, I was actually meeting with somebody yesterday who was opening up to spirituality, and she's like, yeah, we're seeing things everywhere, and my kids are telling me to stop doing what I'm doing. And I was like, protect yourself. Protect your house, and it'll work, and you won't have those experiences anymore. So we talked about that.
I mean, knock on wood, I have not had anything dark ever come through. It's typical. Stacey's got that look. Well, I don't know about you, but I have. But they're maybe angry or just want attention. But knock on wood, I think this is fake wood.
Stacy also has a very intuitive pup, as do I. And Stacy, tell us a little bit about Astrid.
So I don't have a cool video of Astrid, but I will tell you that she is actually the one alert that I got whenever I had an attachment. So this is why I was making the face when Carissa said, I've never had anything negative, come through my house, maybe angry things. And I'm over here going, well, I got an attachment. The bitch attached to me, and my dog is the one that let me know that I had the attachment. So she definitely will let us know. I remember one day my husband and I were sitting in our living room, and she jumped up and she was just staring down the hallway barking, going absolutely nuts. And there was nothing like there were no noises, there was really nothing happening. And I actually looked up and I had to tap in, and I was like, oh, we've got a dude chilling in our hallway right now. I've got to clear him. And my husband was like, wait, what? And I was like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. It's fine. And like 20 minutes later, the dog calmed down and she came and snuggled, and he was like, is it gone? And I said, oh yeah, it's gone. It's fine. And he was like, oh, okay. And he was just really confused, but my dog was really alerting and going crazy with it. So.
Well, and I've had go ahead, Carissa.
I was going to ask, because you do a lot of protection stuff, especially for the readers. I feel like, or the readers, sorry, the listeners may have this question. How do you think you got that attachment? Because I don't work with attachments, but you do, Stacy. And you say it typically takes time, right?
Yep. So I got the attachment because my guides needed me to understand what the experience feels like. So it was
Mm.
actually in the very beginning of working with attachments and clearings and things along those lines. Because when I do attachment clearings on a person, understanding what they are experiencing from that spiritual level it is kind of important because it allows you to kind of put yourself in their shoes, because when you're
Mm.
removing an
Mm.
attachment from somebody, you're actually creating kind of a void. And Michelle, I know you can speak to this a little bit as well, but you're taking away something that is it has been there for sometimes you don't even know how long. So when you take something away, you have to understand what it is like to have that space kind of there. And from that, I learned with the experience of having an attachment that you actually have to fill that space. And Michelle, I'm going to invite you to speak to that a little bit.
Yes, I had an attachment while I was going through my training with Bo. It was kind of it's a long story. I would dive right in, and maybe there'll be a future episode where I can share this. But I had gone into meditation to meet my grandma, and while I was there, I went from being totally happy in me to having a feeling like this is not right. These thoughts are not my thoughts. So pulling myself out of my meditation and just feeling a little bit different, but I was really busy. A story kind of started to come through with this attachment. I didn't realize she was still there. She hid it pretty well until I couldn't deny it anymore, because those words were getting louder and louder. Her thoughts were getting louder and louder, and I knew they weren't mine. And I felt a sense of desperation. I felt a sense of like, what is this? This isn't how I feel. Like, if my grandma heard me thinking like this, I'm the most horrible person. My grandma's one of my guides. So it really was a feeling of I'm trying to exist, and I have a lot of thoughts coming in that aren't mine. They don't feel right. And Stacy helped clear me of that attachment.
And what was it like to fill the void? Was there feel that space?
Once the attachment was gone, to
Yeah,
feel
what
this.
did you have? Yeah, did you have to do anything? What did it feel like?
I just remember, I had reached out to Stacy ahead of a Reiki session, said, I think I have an attachment. And the next morning she came back to me and said, you definitely do. So when I go to take her out or to remove her, you're going to feel that struggle. You're going to feel that pull, which I kind of did. I even saw her. She was there. I felt like she was holding onto my arm, and then she was gone. And it felt just like instantly those thoughts that weren't mine were gone. It was very cyclical. Is that a word?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just kept, it was very looped. Everything she said was looped. And once it was gone, that was gone. And it took a minute of pause to be like, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm clear. And I don't want to scare listeners. It wasn't
Yeah.
like she was at me every day, but there
Mhm.
hit a date, which was actually an anniversary date of when she passed, that at that point it wouldn't stop, and it just kept going.
Mm.
And I lived with it for about a week.
Yeah, it's like a slow trickle whenever you get an attachment. It's not anything that happens significantly. It's not like in the movies. And what I'll throw out there is whenever I've done attachment clearings, which I've actually done several, I remove the spirit or the entity or whatever it is, and I actually typically will replace it with what my guides tell me the person needs: confidence, love, understanding, balance, um support, anything, any like encouragement, anything that energetically they need in that moment. So I remove the negative entity or whatever and replace it with higher vibrational thought processes. So
Mm.
I know we're here talking about dogs, but there's one more
Yeah.
thing that I want to throw out there is you have to remember that attachments are typically humans that are stuck here. So they're stuck here with a more negative vibration. So whenever they connect in with somebody, it's because they see something within that person's vibration that they're drawn to. So it's like a magnetic attraction. So it's not necessarily that you are bad. It's not necessarily that you are in a bad space. It's just something that is in your vibration that they are drawn to. So a great example of this would be somebody that could be controlling. getting an attachment of a spirit that is stuck in that controlling space and needing to kind of take over things and just do, they see that potential, latch on, and you see the human kind of become more of that negative kind of emotional
Controlling. Now it
Yeah.
like kind of heightens now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, like Stacy, when she got her attachment, it was part of a lesson. Mine was part of a lesson also. I had met my grandma. It's a huge intertwined story. It's bigger than this half an hour right now to share. But I think my grandma knew that was going to happen and that I needed to experience what it felt like. So then I wouldn't be afraid of it and I could help other people. And again, I was around all the right people. I was still in the course with Bo. I had you all to bounce ideas off. Stacy, I knew could help clear me. So it wasn't like I felt desperate at times, but that was that energy, not mine. And I know that.
Yeah.
But that even kind of leads into the whole dog thing too. I'll just really quickly say, when I have 2 black labs, and when we started thinking about getting a lab, I wanted a ghoster dog. That's what I always would say. I want a dog that helps to alert me if there's something in my house, and I got one. And I remember the first time she really alerted on something. I was sitting at a counter much like this. There was a door behind me that I couldn't see, doing my own thing. And all of a sudden she let out this bark where I thought someone had just broken into the door behind me. It was protective. It was loud. It was urgent. And I jumped up, completely freaked out. My husband's freaked out. And I'm like, I thought someone just came in the door, but there was nobody there. But I had an experience with somebody else that was bugging Stacy also at the same time. And Stacy's like, no, I know what you're talking about, because I just had an experience with that too. So that was the first time my dog alerted me, and that was a little bit scary.
Well, and you also, I have a video up for you too of your dog alerting again. So do you want me to share that and you can talk us through it?
Sure. Okay, so this is Bexley, and Rob and I are on the couch watching TV, which is in front of us. You can see my husband there, and she's completely distracted. I'm calling her, and she is completely distracted by the door back there and watching something.
She's such a pretty girl.
She
Thank
is,
you.
but she definitely sees something.
Oh, for sure. You can see that focus, that really intense,
Yeah.
like, and it's really cool because if you we have a very good friend of ours too that does animal communications. And one of the coolest things is whenever you get to know your animals, you pick up on those subtle nuances of them alerting. And the video, Michelle, that one of Bex, she's not doing anything huge, but you know her enough to be able to be like, gotcha, something's there.
Yeah. What do you see? And I will say that to her all the time, or she just starts barking. And I'm like, okay, what are you barking at? There's nothing there. There's no sounds around you. You're safe. You're good. But yeah, she does let us know. And I just think it's so wonderful that these animals are so highly intuitive. You know, you're going through something, they feel it in your body. Like, let's say you're feeling sick to your stomach, you can go and sit down, they'll go put their head on your stomach. Like, they're such intuitive animals. They're, you know, not been taught not to know that something's out there or that they're anything than being normal. So,
not always. I had a Great Dane who was the biggest dumbass animal ever, but I loved him dearly. So he was the biggest, I'm gonna call him a derp. And he just
a
he
derp?
was a derp. He was a derp. It's just you know, it is what it sounds like. He would, like, there would be a ton of spiritual stuff happening around us, and he wouldn't even notice. He would be like, doop 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 doop. But Astrid, on the other hand, Astrid is very connected.
do you think they make that choice?
I do.
Not to see everything or not to be alerted by everything. Like, they can tell the difference and it just really doesn't affect them. Whereas some are just like, nope, you're in my space.
Well, I think one of the answers to that could actually potentially be the difference between familiar versus a pet. And I know a familiar is technically like that's a very specific term used for I'm going to say witches because they have their familiars, you know, the black cat you're always hearing about. But you can also see that connection between people with certain animals in their lives. Like I can honestly say that my dog now, she and I are closer than I've been to any other animal in my life. She's my shadow.
Oh yeah, I've had those.
Yeah, she
Well,
could talk. Yeah.
and I can hear reader. Why do I keep saying readers? Y'all don't read, y'all listen. I can hear listeners, or maybe that would just be me as a listener, going, okay, I see my dog doing something. Now what? Okay, don't freak out. Can you sit there and look at it like, oh, this is really a kind of cool experience? And you can choose to protect your space and with your spirit guides, ask them to leave, or you can hold space and work with your spirit guides to help them transition to go home. What does that look like? Sometimes it could be as simple as spirit guides, closing your eyes, spirit guides, please help me get this person home. What do I need to do? And sometimes an image of a door will open up. You hold space with your guides hold space with you. It's not a real complicated process. And we're all here to help.
Well, and I'm gonna add to that and say feel into it a little bit too, because sometimes it's not spiritual. Sometimes you have a mouse in your wall or something, and your animal's trying to tell you that there's a noise that they hear, and you need to pay attention to it. So, you know, I say this because I think one of the easiest things to step into is that everything is going to have a spiritual connection. Everything is a huge message for us, and I think it can become easily like, oh my gosh, I saw this, so obviously I'm gonna hit the lottery today. And it's not necessarily always like that. So sometimes
Yeah,
a
I hear you
dog,
say stay grounded. Let's be
yeah,
grounded first. Let's look at reality. Let's do some critical thinking. And
yeah,
then nothing makes sense. Okay, here it is.
yeah. Because I know if my dog's looking at my front door, oftentimes it's because somebody closed a door up the street. So every time
Mhm.
she's looking, I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, there's a spirit. But you know, there
I
are
like
certain
that.
areas, yeah, there are certain areas of the house that if she's staring at, I know something is potentially going on. So I tap in and figure it out. But it's not always spiritual.
I love that because I'm a very step by step process. So I'm going to reiterate what you just said to clarify it. You see something, check your surroundings, do some critical thinking. If nothing is making sense and you know your pet, then step into, do I want to help the spirit transition home, or do I want to just get them out of my house in a loving way? I think that's really cool. Grounding first, critical thinking, transition. Look at that. I like
Yeah, I
it.
always step trying into debunk too, like Stacy said, use that
Yeah.
critical thinking, like what else could it be? I mean, I know I simplified it earlier, like you're okay, you don't hear anything, but their hearing, as we know, is much better than ours. So I will walk around and see if there's anything else. But yeah, knowing your pet too, and knowing, yeah, I'm trying to think of the right words to say, but just knowing how they move their head and how they react to the room around them on a just baseline,
Yep.
and seeing that it's so different. So yeah, gosh,
So
That's cool.
I have a
yeah,
question for
real
you
cool.
both. I'm gonna throw this out to you guys. Have you guys noticed any uptick in spiritual activity recently?
In my house, I mean, with my dog just then, that was last week. Not anything more significant, not for me.
What about you, Michelle?
And I've gone through a little bit of a dry spell, and or feeling it was dry, or maybe just being coming too comfortable. But no, I have noticed an uptick.
Teak.
Yeah, and things going on, especially when I'm sleeping or trying to sleep. I reached out to both of you the other day and said I was in bed and I was thinking about something spiritual, and this has happened twice. I'm currently on vacation, so once here and once in my home last week, where I'm thinking and really concentrating, and the bed just starts to shake just a little, and it feels a little bit like a small earthquake, but it's not affecting my husband, and he's not behind me, he's on the other side of the bed. So I don't know what that is. Maybe it's astral travel. Maybe it's someone trying to get my my attention. I've got to tap into it a little more.
Well,
No.
I'll share with you guys. I've noticed a pretty significant uptick in my end of the realm because I know last night alone, Astrid in the middle of the night will take off running down the hall if
Mhm.
she hears something abnormal. And it happened 3 or 4 times last night, and every single time there were no sounds that would have interrupted the night. There was nothing happening that would have set her off, and she takes off like a bat out of hell, runs into the living room, and it's like she doesn't see anything physical, so she turns around and trots back. And she sleeps at my feet, so it's great because every time she does this, she barks really menacingly, takes off running down the hall, and then trots back and flops on top of me. So there is no sleeping through these experiences. And last night it happened 3 times.
So I doodle sometimes so I can hone in on the intuition. So I have a little sheet here I'm doodling on. And then right as you were talking, what popped up was location.
Mhm.
And what I'm curious now about is, because it feels like a big yes, is that sometimes the energy shifts and there's more of a heightened sensitivity and activity with locations in the world.
With the uptick though, Astrid really has been the allowing, like, she's the one that's letting me know what's happening. Like, because when I sleep, I know my protections are up, and I know things can't get down in the hallway because I have 2 different protections at both ends of the hallway. So one of them I remove when I'm sitting in my office, and the other one just stays in place all the time. So I know they can't get that far. So her running to the living room is the only space that they can potentially be, which is interesting. So
Mm.
gonna need to figure that out. But I've also had a lot of readings and stuff recently that have been very spiritual in nature too, which could be a piece of that, which means I could also be drawing it in.
Well,
Mhm.
let me ask you this question. We're talking about pets in our own home and them alerting us, but what about pets out, not pets, but animals out in nature? Like, I know the other day I walked out of my house and something just like caught my eye real quick. And I'm like, what was that? And I turned the corner, it was there again. It caught my eye. So something out there was trying to send me a little bit of a message. I know it was spiritual because it had a zing behind it, whereas,
Mhm.
just a bat flying by, it just feels different. It hit my attention 3 times, almost like a zigzag pattern. I'm like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me, but I'm acknowledging you're there and I'm open to the message.
So I love that you're saying this because I think this brings up another good point that I'm going to make is sometimes when we see animals outside, it's not a symbolic thing. Sometimes we just see animals. It feels different when it is something to pay attention to though, and I think that's what there was a zing. There was this like immediate like draw to, oh, I need to pay attention to this. And one of the things that I was thinking about when you were sharing that is I remember I was out hiking, and I love listening to the animals out hiking, but my favorite thing is that I'm not sure if it's squirrels or chipmunks, but they are letting every other animal in the woods know that there are humans there, so you hear the chirps of like the chipmunks or the squirrels alerting everybody, and that's not symbolic. That just it's just a really cool thing to listen to. But there was another instance that I was out hiking and we saw a beautiful snowy owl, and it was during the day and not a typical time to be seeing them, and it was very blatant. So the person that I was hiking with and myself, we paused and we looked at this owl and we just honored it. And it's funny because I get full body chills even sharing this. We just honored it and said thank you for coming because it felt very like the zing. It felt very intuitive, necessary to pay attention to. And the thing actually followed us quite a bit through the woods, but it felt different than just seeing a snake in our path or
Yeah.
things along those lines.
That's what I love about shamanism too, is because power animals and spirit animals, they bring us so many gifts. And right now, I don't know what this is, and this is going to sound quirky to people. So,
No, nothing you say is quirky.
all the time. I am building I or the crow is building a relationship with me
I love that.
and don't know what that's about, but It it's I would only hear it sometimes once every 3 months, and now it's almost like once a week. And so, silently within, I say, "Hello, hello." I'll feed you some raw meat if you like. I'm here. But hello. It's really interesting.
Have you seen it or just heard
Oh,
it?
yeah. Yeah. But
Okay.
it's not getting real close. But then I was right next to my house. I was at a parking lot and a crow was right there on the ground. This is kind of rare. And I rolled down my window and my daughter's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?
But friends
Stop."
might see you.
Did she
She's
say
like,
it like that
"It's a."
too?
No, I'm just making fun of her.
I
She's
like
like,
it.
"It's a bird. It's just a bird." And I was like, "I want to feed it something." And it was very interesting. I said, "Hello." And again, it made the noise and it starts hopping towards me while I'm in the car. And I'm like, "Hello, I'd like to feed you something." And it's hopping while it's cocking. What's the word? Cocking. What's the word that what
Squawking. I like
quacking?
hawking though, but squawking.
Squawking. Thank you. There's the
Hawking. It's just talking everywhere.
cocking everywhere. God, as it coming towards me, it's cocking. So, I feed it a little bit of food and anyway, it's funny because my daughter's like, and I said, "Can I have a piece of your chicken?" Because it was her food. "No, it's my food and you're not feeding a bird. It's just a bird." Oh my God, what is this spiritual stuff? Roll up the window. I don't know if y'all's, have family members that do this that are younger. No, maybe.
My family just makes fun of me. They're a
Yeah,
little older
well,
than your daughter, though.
yeah, well, still though.
Yeah.
Right. They'll say stuff like that,
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean, I end up by myself the majority of the time, so I don't really have family members that get to experience the hardcore eccentricities that are my life. So I feel like if I had somebody that was younger that hung out with me, that would be exactly my experience. But no, I end up being alone the majority of the time.
But I
Oh,
love, yes, how animals out in the wild, where there is a connection, sometimes they come in to bring you messages and, hawks are really big for me. Yeah, sometimes it's just a hawk, but I gotta tell you, I see one at least once a week.
But it feels different when it's a message, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
yeah.
does.
And that can come through like color. I know when I'm out walking, if I see a yellow bird, I instantly know that's a message, or a red bird. I don't see them all the time, but when I
Mhm,
do, I know it's like one of my grandparents trying to get in touch with me.
mhm,
It could be the way a butterfly is flying. I mean, it'll
mhm.
stay and it'll do like up and down or something, like, "Hey, I'm here," like a ball bouncing. And I know that's usually a message of some sort. They just feel so different when there's a message there.
Yeah, I agree. It really, and the reason that I keep reiterating this is because I see it time and time again with those that are kind of newer to spirituality, where it feels like everything is a message. Everything is a message. Every time there's a number, 444.
111.
Yeah.
111.
And I'm seeing this every time every time I look at the clock, it's 11:11. And it's like, that's really cool and it feels good, but it's not always a significant spiritual thing. Sometimes, like, and what I tend to say is, like, unless it feels really different, if you're if you're out and you see a random animal and it feels different, like, look it up, explore the spirituality behind, explore the symbolism behind it, see what it feels like. If it is like a normal animal that you see, thank it for showing itself to you, and just think of it as a hug from the universe. 11:11, 222, 444. If you're seeing them constantly, I'm going to suggest that it's because you're actually looking for them without realizing you're looking for them. And when we're looking for those signs, they will always show themselves. And they're not always some significant message, but it is a hug from the universe. It is like a nod to you. So it's always a good feeling, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a significant nudge.
Yeah, and then you'll eventually figure out what it means for you. Like when I have the repeating numbers, which I don't have all the time, hardly, and it's you're on the right path. And it's like, okay, thank you. Like you're not
Right.
veering off. This is it. This is good. Even though the times may not be good, right? It's
Yeah.
like, you're there. You got this.
Yeah, it's a little nod, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I really step into synchronicities. I work with them a lot. They speak to me a lot, but most of the times
Hmm.
it's just, you're on the right path. This
Yeah.
happened. Like 2 days later, something random related happened. I'm like, it's just confirmation that you're on the
Yeah.
right path.
And I do apologize if I sound like an asshole saying that, but I see it
No, because I feel like
so
what
often.
it feels like to me is you're protecting listeners, not readers.
Mhm.
And because you can go a little kookadoo.
That's such a nice way to put it. Kookadoo.
Kookadoo.
But if you're out in nature and you come across an animal you don't see very often and you want to look up the spiritual meaning, by all
Yeah.
means do
Oh,
that.
yeah.
It'll
Oh,
bring you some
absolutely.
peace. It'll connect you to the universe, as Stacy said it. It's just
Yes.
that nudge. Yep, you're on the right track.
Yep.
And you got to figure out how the universe speaks to you. And one way to do that is trial and error.
And the other thing that I'll add to that, Michelle, is when you're looking up the meaning behind things, don't just stick to one source, because sometimes like an animal can mean different things in different cultures. So you're gonna want to look across the cultures and see what feels right, because a lot of times it's a nod, it's a nudge, it's a hug, it's just a hey, you're on the right path, but it might speak to something specific in your life. So when you do that lookup of the symbolism behind something, if it speaks to something that really feels right to you, that's when you go, okay, maybe this is referring to that fight that I just got into with my boyfriend. My boyfriend.
My
Or my boyfriend. Or it could be something work related because of the meeting. I love that you and I both just did that. My boyfriend.
I'm losing the reference. I don't get it. Is it
It's
from a
really
show?
not. There's no
Okay.
reference.
There's
It's
no
a
reference.
fun way to say boyfriend.
Well, let me ask you about an animal that I took as a message. I was in a pretty intense spiritual situation with 3 other friends, and one single black ant walked across the table. It
On a kitchen
wasn't a
table?
lot of them. Yeah, like a dining room table. Like you were there, Chris. At the
Oh, was
Sally
I?
house.
Oh, was I?
One black ant just
That's
walked
right. I
across.
remember.
Yeah, just walked across, and we were just so curious, is like, where are the rest of the ants? Like, it just felt like ominous a little bit. Like,
So that to me, like, and this is my interpretation almost immediately as soon as you said that, like ants tend to be really ants work. They do a lot of work for, their ant family, because I can't think of the actual
The
language.
aunt family.
The
I'm your
aunt.
echo today.
I
I'm your
love it.
echo.
I need me some good backup singers. Can you follow me around with a tuba? No,
Yes.
it feels like a kind of a message that you're all working towards something. Ants tend to be really hard workers, so that single ant showing up is to me feels very symbolic of the work that you were kind of learning and doing and going through in that experience.
yeah, and
It was
both of us
also like y'all
also,
need to. It was also like it's time to wrap things up,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
work.
Yep.
And there were both ant connections for 2 of us too, like our aunties, our aunts that way also. So to see the one ant, it
It's
was
true.
like, okay.
I'm
Y'all
gonna
need-
throw out there that I think that this is actually a really solid place to wrap up. Stay sassy.
Stay classy.
Stay badassy.
Bye,
Until next
guys.
time, fun. Bye.
Bye.